In Spokane, Washington, people thought they knew their neighbors. But behind closed doors, sometimes the truth is terrifying. Robert Lee Yates Jr. was one of those neighbors, a man who seemed normal. He had a family, served in the military, and lived quietly. But hidden from view was a dark life of murder and secrets. Tonight we reveal the story of how this seemingly ordinary man led a horrifying double life. The story starts in 1975, near Mill Creek, when a young couple, Susan Savage and Patrick Oliver, were suddenly shot and killed in broad daylight. There were no clues or leads, just two lives taken without explanation. This case went cold, buried in police files. Little did anyone know that this was only the beginning of Yates' path of violence, a path that would later target many vulnerable women, especially sex workers in Spokane, as his crimes escalated. By the mid-90s, Spokane was gripped by fear as women working the streets started disappearing. These women, often unnoticed by society, became easy targets. Soon, their bodies began turning up in shallow graves, each with the same disturbing signs: a plastic bag tied over the head and a single gunshot wound. Detectives were desperate for answers, but Yates kept slipping under the radar. To everyone else, he was a reliable neighbor, a military veteran who seemed trustworthy. But at night, he prowled the streets, offering rides and luring his victims with promises of cash. One of his victims was Jennifer Joseph, a 16-year-old whose body was found along an empty road. Her blood left a faint trail, but it didn't lead detectives to her killer. As more bodies were discovered, each one carried the same haunting details, but detectives struggled to find a pattern. Darla Sue Scott was found in a remote forest, and another victim, Melody Murfin, was buried right in Yates' own backyard, just steps away from where his family lived, unaware of the horror that lay beneath. Melinda Mercer, who trusted Yates enough to get into his white Corvette, ended up the same way: shot, bagged, and abandoned. No one suspected that the friendly man from the neighborhood could be responsible. But Yates' string of killings would face a turning point when one of his victims, Christine L. Smith, managed to escape and give a vital description to the police. Christine, a sex worker, accepted a ride from Yates. She offered him oral intercourse, but he coldly refused. Moments later, he pulled out a gun and tried to kill her. The shot grazed her, allowing her to run for her life. She later reported the incident, describing Yates and his white Corvette. This critical detail about the Corvette began connecting Yates to several other disappearances and finally put detectives on his trail. After years of frustration, detectives finally had a breakthrough. Christine's description of the white Corvette linked Yates to multiple crime scenes. Investigators seized the Corvette and found crucial evidence inside: blood and DNA from Jennifer Joseph, along with a button from her clothing. On April 18, 2000, police arrested Robert Lee Yates. His horrifying secret life was finally exposed, leaving the community in shock. Despite the brutal nature of his crimes, he didn't display any emotion. In October 2002, Yates was sentenced to death, though he continues to delay his punishment with appeals, as if still trying to avoid justice. This is the chilling story of Robert Lee Yates Jr. For the families affected by his crimes, the scars he left are far from healed. As we close this story, we are reminded of a hard truth: the real monsters sometimes don't lurk in the shadows but are hiding in plain sight, disguised as the people we trust, waiting for their next opportunity to strike.